A $5 bill, that's what this whole video is all about. What it used to be worth and what it's worth now. In 1985, that $5 bill was walking around money. It had weight. It meant something. I went back and looked at what 20 different things actually cost in 1985, and then what those same things cost today. And I want to walk you through all 20 of them because a few of these are going to feel like a gut punch. So here's how this works. It's 1985, you've got a $5 bill. The federal minimum wage is $3.35 an hour, so that 5 took about an hour and a half to earn at the bottom of the pay scale. We're going to look at 20 things you could buy with that bill, or in some cases, how many of something you could get, and compare every single one to what it would cost today. Let's start with the ones that hurt the most. In 1985, a pack of cigarettes cost about 98 cents. So your $5 bill bought you 5 packs with 10 cents left over. Now, I'm not here to tell you whether you should smoke or not. You probably shouldn't smoke, though. But I will tell you about what the same $5 buys today. In most states, you can't buy a single pack of cigarettes for $5. The national average is around $8 to $9 a pack. In New York, it's $15. So the $5 that bought you 5 packs in 1985 now buys you roughly half a pack if you're lucky. That's somewhere between a 750 and 1,400% increase depending on where you live. Part of that is inflation, but part of it is taxes specifically designed to make you quit. In 1985, you could pull change out of your couch cushions and buy a pack of Marlboros. Today, it's a luxury purchase. In 1985, the average concert ticket for a top 25 act was about $15. So your $5 bill covered about 1/3 of whoever was coming through your town that summer. Today, the average concert ticket for a major act runs around $136. Your $5 covers about 4% of that same experience. That's roughly an 800% increase. And that's just the average price. We're not even talking about platinum packages, the VIP floors, the dynamic pricing that turns a decent seat into a $400 decision you're going to have to make in 30 seconds before it's gone. I remember going to the back of a Sears to go to a Ticketmaster. I believe that memory is correct. You'd go upstairs at Sears and you'd walk behind all of the appliances and stuff, or the TVs, and then the Ticketmaster would be right there. And you'd pay around $15, which was just a little bit more than the cost of an album, so it was a good deal. A neighborhood barbershop haircut in 1985 cost about $5. Now, if you want to get all fancy and go to Supercuts, you're paying $8. But you know what? That's a little rich for my blood. Okay, I'm kind of kidding there, but you know what I'm saying. So most of us stuck with a barbershop. My dad took me to the barbershop, and for some reason, in like the 70s especially, I just couldn't stand it. Like you were just so bummed that you're going to get a haircut, like it was a big deal. Anyway, the experience was a specific thing. You walked in, you waited your turn, the barber put a cape around your neck and went to work with scissors and a comb. At the end, he hit the back of your neck with a straight razor and showed you the result with a hand mirror. 20 minutes from start to finish, and you walked out looking like a human being. What was funny was they never got all the hair, though, so you're all itching all day the rest of the day. You got to get some hair down the collar. It was the worst. Today, the national average for a basic men's haircut is around $29. And a lot of places don't even use a straight razor anymore. That $5 bill that covers your entire neighborhood barbershop haircut in 1985 now covers about a sixth of one. A candy bar in 1985, your Snickers bar, your Hershey's bar, Charleston Chew, any candy bar was 35 cents. Your $5 bill bought you 14 of them. You could walk out of a 7-Eleven with both arms full of candy for $5. And we did that. I spent way too much of my allowance on candy. Why was candy such a big deal back then? But here's what nobody's talking about. That 35-cent candy bar was a real candy bar. It was the size of what they now call a king size. At some point, the candy companies just quietly started shrinking the bar, a little thinner here, a little shorter there. And then they introduced the king size as if they were doing you a favor, charging you a premium for what used to be just called a candy bar. Today, a standard Snickers bar runs about $2.19. The king size, your original 1985 candy bar, is closer to $3.50. So you went from 14 real candy bars for $5 to maybe 1.5 of what they're now calling the king size. That same candy bar that we bought for 35 cents. A pound of ground beef in 1985 cost about $1.28. So $5 bought you nearly 4 pounds of beef. That's meatloaf on Monday, spaghetti on Wednesday, burgers on Friday, and you still got meat left over. Today, ground beef runs around $6 a pound nationally. But I personally spend way more than that. I spend closer to $10 a pound no matter what type I get. So that $5 gets you less than a pound and in many cases closer to half a pound. That 4-pound haul you got for $5 that fed a family for a week in 1985 now costs you $25 at a minimum, closer to $40 if you're shopping in a higher cost market. In 1985, a Rubik's Cube cost you about $2. Now look, I know we're not buying Rubik's Cubes all the time, I just had to include this one for nostalgia reasons. So in 1985, your $5 bill bought you 2 Rubik's Cubes and left you $1 in change. The cube craze had already peaked by 1985. The real frenzy was in 1980. I remember the year leading up to MTV, like the year before MTV launched is when the Rubik's Cube craze really hit. But they were still everywhere, toy stores, drugstores, the checkout lines at grocery stores. Today, a standard Rubik's Cube at Walmart runs around $10. Your $5 only covers about half. So that's roughly a 400% increase. A bag of Lay's potato chips in 1985 cost 99 cents. Your $5 bill bought you 5 bags with a nickel left over. 5 bags of chips, that's a whole Saturday afternoon right there. Today, that same bag runs about $5.50. And these were real bags of chips, not the mostly air-filled bags that we have today. $5 worth of potato chips in 1985 was a serious pile of chips. Today, that $5.50 bag is smaller and lighter than what 99 cents bought you in 1985. A cup of coffee at a diner in 1985 cost about 50 cents, and it came with free refills. You could sit at that counter all morning on a single 50-cent cup. Your $5 bought you 10 mornings of that. The diner coffee experience in 1985 was a specific ritual. The waitress had a glass pot in each hand, regular in one hand, decaf in the other. She came by every 10 minutes without being asked. You never had to flag anyone down. Today, a cup of diner coffee runs about $3.50. But if you want to talk about where coffee pricing has really gone off the rails, a medium specialty drink at Starbucks will run you $6, $7, sometimes closer to $8. Your $5, which bought you 10 mornings of bottomless cups of coffee in a diner in 1985, now doesn't cover a single pumpkin spice latte. And even worse, you have to stand there and spell your name for them. A first-class postage stamp in 1985 cost 22 cents. Your $5 bill bought you 22 stamps with 6 cents to spare. You could pay all your bills, send birthday cards to everyone in your family, and write a letter to a friend across the country, all for $5. Today, a first-class postage stamp costs 78 cents. Your $5 buys you about 6 stamps. The act of physically mailing something has quietly become expensive enough and slow, if we're being honest, that most people have stopped doing it entirely. And price is a big part of the reason why. That's about a 255% increase. Modest compared to some of the other numbers in this video, but it adds up fast. The average movie ticket in 1985 cost about $3.55. But if you caught a matinee, you were paying $1.50, maybe $2. Which means your $5 bill got you and a friend in the door with money left over. And what were we walking in to see in 1985? Rocky IV, The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Back to the Future, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. 1985 was a pretty fun year for kids' movies. And let's not forget about the candy and drinks. I've always chosen a box of Red Vines and the biggest Diet Coke that they offer. Usually my bladder was dying by the end of the movie because I didn't want to miss parts of it. So back then, a large Coke was about like $1, $1.50, and a box of Red Vines was the same price, about $1 to $1.50. Today, that large Diet Coke runs about $6.50, even up to $7 or $8 depending on where you're at. The Red Vines are about $5 to $6. The concession stand alone now costs more than your entire 1985 trip to the movies. Today, the average ticket is about $11. In a major city, it's $18 to $20. And even more if you're seeing it in THX or surround sound or all those fancy different types of theaters they have now. Your $5 bill that got 2 people into a matinee in 1985 now covers less than half of one ticket. Blockbuster Video opened its first store on October 19, 1985, which means the video rental era that we grew up with was literally born that year. Before that chain, you had your local mom-and-pop video rental shops. I still remember the first place where we rented VHS tapes. It was in a trailer that was parked in the grocery store parking lot near our house. And it was kind of funny because they would let you rent rated R movies and wouldn't card you, like we were for sure underage. And we're picking out movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, Basket Case, Reanimator, all that sort of stuff. And they never carded us, but it was awesome. And back then you could rent a movie for around $2 overnight, maybe like $2.50. So you'd get a couple of them for $5. And I have to be honest with you, I miss it. I know it's not as efficient as the way we get movies now, but it was just kind of fun. The fluorescent lights, the carpet smell, the cardboard display boxes on the shelves with the actual tape behind the counter, walking every aisle before making a decision and then talking with your friends. Have you seen this movie yet? Or would you watch it again if you had? That sort of thing. That was part of the fun. Today, that entire experience has been replaced by Netflix at $15.49 a month. No late fees, no driving anywhere, no decisions made under fluorescent lights on a Friday night. Again, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like we're missing out, kind of. Maybe that's just nostalgia. In 1985, a McDonald's Big Mac value pack, which is Big Mac, large fries, and a large drink, cost you $2.59. Your $5 bill bought you a complete meal and left you with $2.41 in change, so you could almost get two of these. A full fast food experience for less than $3. Today, that Big Mac meal averages around $9.29 nationally. Some markets are charging closer to $12. In fact, your $5 doesn't cover the meal. It doesn't even cover the sandwich alone in a lot of markets. That's roughly a 260% increase on the same three items, a burger, some fries, and a Coke. I remember going to college in the late 80s, and places tried to keep full meals for under $5. And if you get a full meal with drink for $5, they'd get your business in a college town. So in the late 80s, that was a thing. I think they kept the $5 and under for quite a while after that as well. Taco Bell was my favorite fast food place when I was a teen. Taco Bell in 1985 was in the middle of a pricing revolution. The guy who took over operations in 1983 had a theory: make the food so cheap that nobody could say no. And the price reflected that. Crunchy tacos were around 49 cents, bean burritos were 59 cents, a burrito supreme ran about 99 cents. I think they may even had a 79-cent menu too, but it was cheap. So for $5 in 1985, here's what you could actually order: 3 crunchy tacos, 2 bean burritos, a burrito supreme, and a large Pepsi. The total came to about $4.23. You walked out with change from a $5 and you were stuffed. Just a ton of food for $5. Today, that exact same order runs somewhere around $16 to $17. Your $5 now covers 1 crunchy taco and 1 bean burrito. That chain that built its entire identity on being impossibly cheap now charges fast casual prices for the same food. In fact, you can go to a sit-down Mexican restaurant and probably get a lot more for your money. Pizza Hut launched the personal pan pizza in 1983, and by 1985 it was everywhere. Your own individual cast iron pan of pizza for around $2. Your $5 bill bought you 2 of them with change left over. Pizza Hut had this program called Book It. Read enough books in school and you earned a free personal pan pizza. Now, this was for elementary school, so I was in junior high at the time, so I didn't partake in this, but I do remember hearing about this, and it looked pretty awesome. And if you were in elementary school in the mid-'80s, you absolutely remember it. And Pizza Hut was such a good deal back then. You could spend $2 for the personal pan pizza, and I think for another $2, you have an endless salad bar. The whole lunch was for under $5 and you were stuffed. Today, that same personal pan pizza runs about $7.80. In 1985, most arcade games cost $1 to play. But if you went to a mall arcade, some of them had tokens, and for $1, you would sometimes get 5 tokens, and they would incentivize you to spend more. So for $5, you would get even more bonus tokens. And if you spent $20, you would get more for your money. So it was kind of a way for people to spend even more at the arcade. So if you went to an arcade that just had quarters, for $5, you'd get 20 games. But some of the places you'd get 25 games for $5. So 25 plays on a Saturday afternoon. Some of my favorite games were Joust, Robotron, Karate Champ, Track and Field, Galaga, Pole Position, Spy Hunter, Tempest. I was in the arcades a lot. And the mall arcade was a specific sensory experience that doesn't really exist anymore. I remember whenever my dad or my sisters had to come in and get me, they always complained that it smelled like body odor. My dad said, "This smells like BO." And I'm like, "What's BO?" Oh, that's body odor, Rusty, and that arcade reeks of it. These days they have barcades, so they have taken a lot of bars and turned them into arcades. So you have 21 or older arcades and pinball places because it's nostalgic, and people like me go to those. Meet up with your friends, get a pitcher of beer, play some video games, team up on Joust, or try to beat each other's high score on Robotron, or Medieval Madness pinball machine. It's a blast. So it's making a small comeback, but as far as price goes, the games cost a lot more. 50 cents is a standard play for most games, and a lot of them are $1 plus. So yeah, the price has gone up. Blank cassette tapes in 1985 ran a whole spectrum of prices depending on how much you cared about the sound. The cheap store brands, the ones that would eat your Walkman if you looked at them wrong, you could get those for under $1. But a decent Max LUR or TDKT or some of the fancier brands cost quite a bit more. I typically went for the Max Ls. You could get those for about $1 to maybe up to $2 depending on where you got those. If you bought them in a pack, it was cheaper, obviously. But for $5, you typically could get about 3 solid tapes with a little bit of change left over. You just kind of would mix and match brands. So yeah, about 3 tapes. And those tapes were currency. You recorded songs off the radio or like records, and you made mixes and stuff for your girlfriend. Those were a big deal back then. Today, a blank cassette from a boutique shop runs about $7 to $10 because the format's now come back as a nostalgia item, which means it now costs more than it did when it was the dominant medium. Funny how that works. A pound of ground coffee in 1985, Folgers, Maxwell House, and whatever was on the shelf cost about $2.83. Your $5 bill bought you nearly 2 pounds. Today, a pound of decent ground coffee runs you about $7.50, which is actually a record high right now due to supply issues in South America. Your $5 now buys you a little over half a pound. So this is one of those things where it seems to be more expensive, but it's actually cheaper based on inflation. So the inflation expected amount should be 3x, and it's actually a 2.7x. So this has actually gotten cheaper since 1985, and it's better. A gallon of regular gasoline in 1985 cost about $1.12 nationally. But I remember paying less than $1, and one place that comes to mind is the AM/PM mini marts. They were Arco stations, and I remember them being in the 97 to 99 cent range for quite a while. So your $5 bill bought you 5 gallons or more if you found the right station. Today, the national average is $4.56 a gallon. Here in Washington, we're paying $5.77, but that's just the average. Just south of Seattle, where I just filled up my tank, I spent like $6.40 a gallon, I believe. That 5-gallon fill-up that cost you $5 in AM/PM in 1985 now costs between $20 and $30 at the same station. Some of that is 40 years of inflation, but it's definitely outpaced it. Either way, it costs a lot to fill up a tank of gas now, and you feel it every time you have to fill up. A dozen large grade A eggs in 1985 cost about 80 cents. Your $5 bill bought you about 6 dozen eggs. That's 72 eggs. You can make breakfast for your entire neighborhood. Now, eggs are a complicated story, and I want to be straight with you. For most of the last 40 years, eggs stayed at a stable amount, around $1, maybe $2 a dozen. Then the bird flu hit starting in 2022 and wiped out over 100 million egg-laying hens. By early 2025, the national average hit $6.22 a dozen, a record. The annual average for all of 2025 last year was nearly $5. But the prices have kind of crept back down, so right now nationally eggs are back around $2.25, maybe $2.50. So although they do cost quite a bit more than they did in 1985, when you take inflation into account, you're getting eggs at less than what you'd expect to pay based on inflation. So this is actually another one of the items that's gotten cheaper over time. A 6-pack of domestic beer, Budweiser, Miller, Coors cost about $4.30 in 1985. So your $5 bill covered about a 6-pack of beer. Today, that same 6-pack runs $10 to $12. Your $5 bill covers half of one. And so while that does feel expensive, especially if you grew up in the 80s, this is actually one of the better deals of the group. Because with inflation, it should be around $15, but you're getting it for around $12. So you're actually getting a 6-pack of beer cheaper when you adjust for inflation. So let's talk about salaries back in 1985. In 1985, the federal minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. That $5 bill represented 1 hour and 29 minutes of work at the bottom of the pay scale. And you felt the time that went into that money. The federal minimum wage today is still $7.25. It hasn't moved since 2009, the longest stretch without an increase in American history. Here in Washington State, we've done better. Our minimum wage is $17.13 an hour, the highest in the country, and in Seattle, minimum wage is $21.30. At $17.13, $5 takes about 17 minutes to earn. That sounds like progress, and in some ways it is. But walk back through this video. The haircut that cost $5 now costs $29. The concert ticket that averaged $15 now averages $136. That Big Mac meal that cost $2.59 now costs $9.29. The gallon of gas we were getting for under $1 at AM/PM now costs $5.77 or more. The wages went up, the prices went up faster. And what you could do with $5, the freedom of it, the options it represented, the Friday night it could buy you, that's what actually changed. In 1985, $5 was walking around money. Today, it's almost exactly enough for a medium coffee. And that's what 40 years of inflation actually feels like.